Hello and welcome to the Fifth Trooper Network LVO pre-show. We are joined by the entire network today. It's myself and Evan.
Hey, how's it going?
And we also have Kyle, David, and Mike from the Scoundrels.
Hello.
Hello.
And then we also have Zach and Mike, who are from the blog portion of our network.
How's it going? How's it going, everybody?
Is that okay? You guys are from the blog portion of our network? Does that...
It's not like we have a
It's
choice.
not, really, it's not as prestigious
fine.
as the podcast.
The Jetta journalists.
Yikes.
It's the lowercase p prestigious. Fine.
Yeah.
Jay,
You can't fire me.
I am the network.
So we're having everybody on today because we're talking LVO. Let's see, what is it? 2, 4, 5 of us out of the 7 will be there, right?
Yep, just me and Evan watching from afar.
Well, I tried to bring Evan, but the airline I wanted to fly said no animals, so we had to.
It's really discriminating if you ask me, but all right, I'll let it
go. But yeah, so we're having everybody on. We're going to talk a little bit of Legion, I guess, and what we're expecting at the Vegas Open. And so I guess what we'll open up with, and I guess let's go with Zach. Zach, what are you most looking forward to at LVO?
Definitely meeting everybody from the community. It's been an exciting year, starting up the Jetta Journal and then obviously joining the network here. And, everyone is going to be a blast to meet up with and have fun. 110 competitors in the heat or 120. So it's a lot of people to go ahead and meet and have fun in Vegas with. It's going to be a good time. Judging Friday, playing Saturday, and Sunday, either casting or judging. It's just going to be grueling, but it's going to be a lot of fun.
So how many big tournaments have you been to?
This is my first.
What? Yep. Get out of there.
Yep.
It's a good first.
Yeah.
So how excited are you?
Excited, nervous. A couple things. Coming from a hockey background, I'm used to tournaments, and playing sports all weekend, but definitely first time wargaming one. So I'm pretty excited. It's gonna be a good time.
Yeah. I find that, like this year I'm excited because I kind of packed a couple extra days in for the flight where last year, Kyle, you and I did that interview of Luke like Sunday morning. And then I had to leave 5 minutes after that and fly home. And so when you do the big tournaments like that, it's hard to get together with everybody if you haven't packed in a little bit time, which is besides Legion. That's the other thing you want to do, right? All these people you've been talking to online and on Discord and on Facebook and interviewing on the podcast or, writing about on the blog. And then you're like, oh man, I can't wait to talk to that person, when I get there. And then you're like, oh, we're wrapping up at 10 and I got to leave tomorrow morning. So. Yeah,
unfortunately I'm actually doing that. I'm flying in Thursday, leaving Sunday night, but that was more of a life issue. I'm going to be there at Chicago a lot longer. So learning experience from LVO. Good. Chicago will be the real shebang, I think.
Yeah, so Mike Cirillo, what are you looking forward to?
I'm looking forward to streaming the most. I actually have more fun talking about Legion and watching people play than playing myself because there's no pressure. I can just sit there and critique others. So I think it's going to be fun to watch some really high-level play.
The pressure is going to be in doing a good job.
I didn't say I'm not going to do that. I said there's less pressure.
Just throwing it in, huh?
This is a probationary tournament for you, just FYI.
That's fine.
Right.
This is my 7th hiring, so,
I have not made this clear enough for him. Yeah, if you don't do well, you're not invited to Worlds.
Good thing I already got my tickets.
Jay, you're such an elitist ass.
Yeah, only when it comes to certain people. No, just kidding.
No, but in all seriousness, I'm looking forward to watching some really high-level play. This is about as close as we're going to get to Worlds until Worlds happens, and there's not going to be a lot of low-quality games.
Yes. No, I would say minimum, right? I think LVO, from my recollection last year, every game seemed intense. All 4 of my games, David, you played 5. I'm sure every single one seems so intense at these bigger tournaments. And I wonder too, is that because maybe you like when you're at home at the primes and stuff, I think most of the people for the most part. You'll always have people you don't know, but most of the people and you're friends with. And at these bigger tournaments, it's like, oh man, you're new. I've never played against you. I don't know your style. And so like the first round or two, you're just trying to like pick up the other player's style of play and what they're trying to do. And it feels like a lot of pressure. Like, David, what do you think?
Yeah, you're trying to feel out what kind of player they are when they set up across from you, and like, okay, how might this go? What kind of style do they bring? Like, you sort of try to get a sense of just what the way they set up, the way they move, the way that they put their minis out, and how how tense or their body language. You kind of get a sense of their preparedness for the event. You get a sense of you can tell if they're like an old hand and they're super confident, or if they're cocky, or if they're a little bit timid. And you're just trying to see how is this going to go? What kind of skill level am I working with here? You should always have respect for your opponents, even if you think they're new. But you know that you can tell when you're up against a player that is dangerous and canny. I'll just say that much. Yeah. And you're right, Jay. Every single game that I played, there were no easy games, none at all. And I think I went 3-0, and then I faced Griffin, who won the whole thing. So I took the hardest road, so to speak, where you don't drop a game until the very last round. And so I got a real sense of that at last year's LVO, and I think this year we're going to have an even higher overall caliber of player. I think the competition only gets more intense as the game gets older, and it's going to be a whole new set of challenges to overcome when we get there.
Yeah, and I would say, something that just popped in my mind that I would, for anyone listening that's going to any of these big tournaments, something to remember too is, like, I dropped my first game to Nima in just this like nail biter. Like, we went right to dice down. It was one of the hardest games still to this day that I've ever played. And I still was in the running because then I won the next three. So, it was funny the way you flopped. You had lost your fourth, I had lost my first, but like, I would say, even if you drop your first to like a good opponent and you lose, you're still very much in it, and you want to make sure that once that's over and you pick up your stuff, that you want to reset your mindset, for the next game.
Right, and maybe some of the other folks, maybe Kyle and Mike, you can talk to this point a little bit. Is it also depends on your style. Like, are you good at playing from behind? Can you overcome a round one loss and just say, okay, that's fine. I'm X-1. That's reality. I'm just going to keep working from here. Or do you need like that head of steam? Like, does the 0-1 entering round two damage you? Like, how do you think you react?
Yeah, Kyle, what do you think?
So I haven't actually competed in that many real life tournaments, so I've never actually been in that position. But I think like,
jeez, this guy. Huh?
No, I mean, like, the sample size for me is super short or super small.
I just don't
get me wrong. I've lost plenty. I've lost plenty of games in tournaments. But yeah, I mean, any loss, like in a situation where X and ones can still make it, like, you definitely just have to take each game individually. And when you take that loss, you kind of just have to wipe it, wipe it from your brain and move on. So, and actually, you know what? I take that back, because last year I lost to LJ in the first round at FFG headquarters. So, I mean, you just have to, you just kind of have to wipe your brain and start with a clean slate for game two.
Yeah, and I mean, learn from it too, right? Like, I think there's a value in every loss. I know for me there is. Like, I'm always like, oh, I should have done that. And then the next game, I'm thinking about all those losses and how I lost, and hopefully being better for the next game. And I think you can do that short term, even in a tournament, and be like, oh, okay, this is where I messed up there. Just make sure I don't do that on the next 2 or 3 or 4,
I think you've got to be very careful with that, and that in the middle of a tournament, especially when we're talking about like short-term like learning, it's very easy to learn something that's not actually true. Specifically if you get kind of railed by variance. You're like, oh man, I threw my unit out there and they failed all their saves and they just disappeared. It's entirely possible you made the right move and the dice just didn't work out statistically. And I think that's important to remember, because it's easy to get tilted and then start actually
Yeah,
doing
that's
things
fair. And I guess, for me, it's not so much variant stuff, but more like target priority stuff. That always seems to sneak up on me during games, especially. I find at tournaments, there's a lot of other stuff going on and some like crosstalk and stuff. So it's easy to like lose focus a little bit. So just trying to like tighten up that focus in each game. And, what are some of those golf movies where, oh gosh, I think it was the one with Matt Damon, Bagger Vance, where like the whole field just disappeared and he could only see, the flag at the end, like stuff like that. I think that's just about like focusing in on what's in front of you and trying to lock everything else out. But so Evan's not going to LVO, but Evan, what are you looking forward to from LVO or even Adepticon coming up?
I really want to see a really weird list win. I want to see like Jin and Pathfinders like make top cut, maybe not win. Or my big one is a double airspeeder dogfight. That's my goal. Fight for air superiority in the ground game. I'm in. Maybe that's just the X-wing in me, but seeing them circle each other, it's like everyone's standing around side, like watching, two other people fight it out, like in a weird way. But I think that'd be cool. Like see that happen.
I think with Evan talking about his Hoth list so much, we've heard rumblings that people out in the community have been trying to build Hoth lists with the T-47. So I think there's definitely a chance that we're going to see a T-47 or two at Vegas this weekend.
Well, like it's 140 points, and as long as it gets a couple kills in, it's good. Like as long as I get a couple activations off of it, I'm okay if it goes.
Yeah.
Like it did its thing.
And Evan's been marking the side of his T-47 for every sniper unit he kills now.
Like the deep. So everyone brought snipers to our prime, and every time I just used it as a sniper hunter because I don't want to play snipers, but you can't. All because I don't want to play them doesn't mean you don't have to think about how you're going to play against them, right? Like, it's some people say I don't want to play Tons because I don't whatever high ground they want to do for that, but you got to understand that someone else is going to play them, right? So if you don't play them, you have to have a strategy to deal with them. So I just take the airspeeder and I send it out after snipers, and every time I'd kill one. Normally I wasn't doing it to anybody. Like after the game, I'd take it off. So I didn't want to like look the guy in the eye and start like doing it. Till I got to actually Stevens when he brought the triple Ton, triple sniper, triple Cora list with Leia, Sabine. And then the first one I killed, I gave him a look in the eye and I did a mark down the side. Be like, how many more you got over there, bud? Like, where are we going?
Yeah.
We're going to put 3 more on the side of this? Is that what's going to happen?
You just got to rest him on the table, man. Show him who's boss.
I'll do it to like that's fine if people aren't in the joke. I'm not gonna like stunt on somebody who's like, just some nice guy. So,
it's Stevens. Who cares?
Yeah, exactly.
As soon as you put down the list, we put down the list. I'm like, how sweaty are you feeling right now? He's like, man, I feel real sweaty. I'm like, all right, bud, let's go, let's do it. He was a real good sport, so it was a lot of fun.
I love it.
That's funny. Yeah. So Kyle, I'm gonna ask you. We'll start with you, Kyle. What predictions do you have for lists that we will see? We just talked about maybe T-47s maybe flying around. What else do you think? I mean, outside of I think there's 2 obvious ones, which are Tons and the Shoreline, and variations of Shoreline and Tons. What else do you think we're going to see there?
Well, I think you're going to see some Palpatine, hopefully. I think he's in a decent spot, especially against Rebel lists right now, against Tauntauns. It's a little bit more of an uphill battle if you get like an open table against another Empire list that's a pure gun line. But, he can hold his own there too. So I would like to see, I know Luke Cook is playing Palpatine. So, and hopefully there are a couple others. I'd like to see him do well. I actually think he's sort of a dark horse as far as a good counter meta pick right now. So, and I'm partial to him, as you guys know. So I would love to see some Emperor make a splash.
Okay. Mike Cirillo, what do you think we're going to see?
I think we're going to see a whole lot of Empire variety and about 2 main builds for Rebels. Based on the charts that we were given earlier in the week, we've got like 50.5% Empire lists. Fortunately, there's a number that you can run between Palpatine, Heavies, Shorelines, and then maybe the occasional Bounty Hunter Invader. So we'll probably see like 4 or 5 main ones there. And then for Rebels, I'm expecting to see either a triple Taunt Sabine or triple RTs and almost nothing in between.
All right. Dash.
I mean, I don't think we're going to see anything super out of the ordinary. What I will say is that I was continually reminded at our Prime this weekend that people like to bring weird, wonky lists. So I think that while the meta exists, I'm expecting it to be significantly more varied than just Shores and Tauntauns. I expect Shores or Tauntauns to win. But,
What do you? So I know we had talked about the hipster thing on the last podcast. David's new Mipster. Is that what we coined it as?
Meta hipsters. People, everybody's different. So we're, different just like me. If everybody's different, no one's actually different.
But what do you think outside of that though? I have a view on that, but let's David, yours is the hipster. Zach, what do you think is kind of the reason why people are varying up, especially like let's say the ones that are far off center from the meta, like besides being a Mipster, what else is the reasoning there?
Shock factor. I think that when you see something across the table that you don't normally see, you can take your opponent's mind and put him into a different position. Like I'm used to seeing Shores and I'm used to seeing Bosk. I'm used to seeing, droids and stuff like that. But let's say you put Palpatine across the table, like we just talked about Palp. I'm not going to lie. I haven't played against Palpatine in months. I mean, and that's just a big shock factor. I know that's not like anti-meta, but like now let's say somebody shows up with CIS, right? And you're thinking they're playing Double the Fall because that's the Double the Fall list, but they're showing up with, I'm bringing clones to LVO, right? They show up with triple Dekas. Well, triple Dekas is bad for me because now
what is a
they're
triple Deka?
Suppressive, right? So
what is that? What'd you call them?
Dekas, Dekas, droidikas, yeah. Triple Dekas, whatever you want to call them. But I'm not saying people are going to bring triple rolly boys. There you go.
We're probably not going to call them Dekas.
That's fine.
But you can if you want.
But triple rolly boys, if they have suppressive guns, they're gonna hurt me bad with the suppression. And that's kind of the shock factor of when you get to a table, you see a list, you're like, all right, I wasn't really planning on seeing 3 of them. How do I deal with this? Or like Palpatine, how do I deal with Palpatine and get ya? And now you will die and stuff like that. And a shock factor is huge in this game, I think.
Yeah, I think, from my perspective, and, I think Evan and I probably have different perspectives on this. Mine is specifically like, I think and we're going to talk about what we're bringing in a little bit, but, I think I'm bringing something that's off center because I want to try to bring something that's counter meta and almost something that I feel like is going to do well inside this, this new world. And, the real answer is the meta does well inside this world, right? That's why it's the meta. But, I think a lot of us out there are trying to figure out something else because either we're not comfortable with the meta or we're not good with the meta. And then, we're like, well, what am I good at? What am I comfortable with? And how can I make that work in today's world? And then I think Evan has been a huge proponent of playing things that are fun for him to play, like this Hoth themed list that he has. It's decent. It holds up well in this world, but it's also a blast for him to play too.
It's just like the movies. Especially when Palp comes and kills me. That's also just like the movies.
Palpatine wasn't on Hoth.
That's fair.
But yeah, so I think there's a solid chance we're going to see, especially in that what was it, 50 some odd percent Imperial list. I think that's where you're going to see the most, like, Mike, like you said, that's where we'll see the most variation is it because there's options there, right?
Yeah.
And
the 3 of us are taking 3 very different lists that are playing Empire for it.
Yeah, and I think, we were kind of discussing this before, but I think part of the reason that you see such a heavy Empire presence is A, Empire's more popular to begin with, but B, like there are players, like me that just don't want to play Tauntauns. And if you're a Rebel player right now, like if you have Empire models, it's easier and more interesting to just switch to Empire than to play Tauntauns for some people, So I think that's partly why you see such a stack in the faction breakdown. And I think as a result, you'll see a lot more variety and a lot more creativity in the Empire builds, probably.
I'm actually just proof of that as well. The whole reason I'm taking Empire is because I don't want to play Tauntauns. So it's right here.
Yeah.
Blasphemers.
Yeah, I'm always been an Empire player, and I've tried to play Rebels, and I just can never. It never connects with me personally. So I think forever and ever, I will be my main faction will be Imperial, as well as Dash's, right, Dash?
Pretty much.
You're not a total flake like I am.
Oh, I'm a super flake as well. Just whatever I feel like, I'll start
Basically.
playing.
Yeah, everyone changes
I'm like
his
a-
idea every week. He's
Yeah,
got a new idea. So
It was going to be clones
Yeah.
until the stuff just didn't come out. Then
Yeah.
I had to go with what I got. So there we are.
I'm like a diehard Rebel. I just don't want to not play Rebels. So.
Yeah, that's
I
fair.
play
Well,
with
that's what's
good.
nice about the game, right? Like, there's no need to change
Hmm.
unless you just want to, right? Like, well, in the perfect world, right? There's no need to change as long as everything stays somewhat balanced.
So, we're talking about what lists we're gonna see. Let's make some predictions. So each one of us try to think in your minds, maybe two lists. Pick two different lists that you think have a chance of sweeping. Maybe one you think is going to be kind of like a shoe in, and then maybe the other one's like an outside reach. So Dash, what do you think? What are your two predictions?
I mean, it's just Triple Tons and Krennic Shores. I think that's the simple answer. And I think it's likely the right answer.
Well, thanks, Dash. All right, and and David, you're up.
Okay. Boring prediction: Tauntauns make the finals, don't win. They lose to Shores in some format. My outside winner pick would be either Rebel or Imperial heavy armor. And by Rebel heavy armor, I mean land speeder triple rotary,
No,
or
that's actually pretty.
air speeder triple rotary, not land speeder. Jeez. And then for the Imperial heavy list, I would choose a Krennic relay ST, some form of relay ST with link targeting array.
All right, Cirillo, let's go to you.
All right. I think the best Tauntaun list that's going to show up, since that's what the Rebels are, is going to be the Leia Sabine triple. Get the 11 activations in there. On the Imperial side, I think the long shot is going to be a Veers ST Shoreline. Zach and I have a buddy that's bringing a version of that, and he's my dark horse to win it all. He's been playing it for a while, and he can get a number of aim tokens on every single unit every turn, and it does a ton of damage.
Well, and Luke Cook played that model. I think he did it with Krennic instead of Veers, but same concept, right? Where you have an ATST and a bunch of shores, and you just throw down like 5 orders every turn, no matter what
And I
command
actually
card you play.
Sorry. I like the Veers version a little bit better because of the spotter, and a turn 1 max firepower followed up by an ATST shot is pretty good at removing a Tauntaun unit.
Yeah, and the tables are going to be. I'm super interested to see the tables, but we talk a lot about games on TTS, like with Invader League and Team League and stuff like that. The TTS tables are generally denser and have more line of sight blockers than real tables, just because like real life terrain limitations are a thing, and when you got to come up with terrain for 80 tables, that's a legitimate logistical challenge, even for a good team like what's running LVO. So, you've got the IS4 on effect with that ATST. Like, there's going to be some tables where, like the opponent of that ATST is gonna roll up to the table, and they're gonna swap lists, and they're gonna look at this like relatively open looking table in front of them, and they're just gonna be like, like that's gonna happen a couple times.
It's music to my ears.
So I know Mr. Double Heavy there. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to see like the ATST relay model make it pretty far.
No, that's an interesting point you raised, Kyle, because that's another thing we didn't talk about, which is that Empire is actually the safe pick because it survives low terrain density situations more readily than Rebel lists do.
Yeah,
That's
definitely fair.
Yeah.
All right, Zach, what do you think? You going with everybody else? You got any secrets up your sleeves there that you think are gonna win?
I like Krennic Bosk, or Krosk as we call it. I just think it's got a lot of Pierce. Bosk is extremely good against Tauntauns. You can get to 11 activations. I think it's honestly the best Empire list to go with right now. My bold prediction on a winning list would be, I think Double the Fall is actually really, really strong. I know LJ is really strong at playing Double the Fall, and he's not playing the event because he's TOing it. But I know that some other community members, such as Griffin, John Griffin, or Joe DePinto, will be bringing droids. But so maybe Double the Fall is a strong chance, but we'll see.
All right.
I know.
That's all right. So I didn't get to weigh in on this last week. So I'm going to soapbox here for a minute. I actually think that's the best 8 activation list out there.
Agreed.
But I do think that it's super table dependent. Like if you get a table with good line of sight blockers, it's not really going to matter necessarily as much that your opponent can go 4 or 5 times after you're done. Because while that list is not good at going last, it's extremely good at going first. But we'll see. It's going to be super table dependent. It's the winner of LVO has to go 7-0. So it's definitely a list.
Okay.
It's definitely a list where you can show up and steamroll somebody. But
no, I'm not. I gotta make one point before we move on. You can have 13 activations, but the reason you have 13 activations is because you lowered the quality of about 7 of those to get like 6 really good ones. And if they're cunning, nuking the hell out of your good 6 ones, you're gonna lose. Like you're just gonna lose if they kill the ones that matter. So it doesn't matter if you have 13 if they get to where they need to get to and actually blow you away.
My argument with when I was running a high activation was that you can go ahead. None of my units are important. They're all equally dumb. And so you can kill any one and it doesn't matter. I'm going to keep going. Like it's not dependent on the success of the rest of my army.
Soviet Russia approach.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you have a true
congratulations, you killed an E-Web.
Rebels.
Oh, you killed a mortar. Oh, that's
nice.
And and then you just fire. I mean, at that point, it becomes a point attrition thing, and sometimes it just doesn't work out. But let me ask you this, okay? So we've basically said the Krennic, Bosk, Shoreline, the Tripletons, the 11 activation, the 8 activation, Double the Fall. Let's break each one down and let's talk about their strengths and weaknesses real quick. Just a couple quick points. So let's talk about Tripletons. So I think I'll start with Tripletons. Somebody could pick it up after me, but I mean, like we've been talking, Tons are very terrain dependent, and being able to use line of sight blocking to get them to where they need to be in order to do the damage before they start taking hits. So that's one thing that's going to affect them one way or the other on the table. What's something else that somebody could add to that?
Suppression is going to be an issue. There's a few lists that are running around with just Luke as the commander, so there's no strict orders. It's not hard to put 2 suppression on a Tauntaun model. There's a number of Empire guns that do it in one shot, so managing that on a table that's going to be more open where you can't fully hide both models is going to be difficult.
I think limited visibility against certain lists might be a trap for Tauntauns. You kind of think it's good. I mean, it is good in a lot of matchups, but sometimes you might need to actually get in there and you can't because of the range 2, and somebody might stack up standby tokens, which, standby is also very, situational. But don't forget, we're playing, there's plenty of time to finish games at Las Vegas Open, but we are playing time matches and, every round matters, and you might have to get in there and you might not be able to with Tauntauns.
Yep.
All right. Go ahead, Kyle.
Well, actually, I think that's a wild card potentially in favor of the Tauntaun list is the fact that we're working with, limited round times. And Tauntauns are a very objective focused unit. They benefit from creating board control and basically like pinning your opponent in their deployment zone while you just kind of have your way with the objectives. And that works a lot better when you can't get to 6 turns. And there's like a tipping point in most games with Tauntauns where you've kind of potentially like actually managed to kill the Tauntauns and you can start occupying the table and scoring objectives. And that tipping point is like the end of turn 5, the beginning of turn 6. So, you know, I know like if we're looking at turn number stats, you're looking at, oh, look, you know, average games went to 5 turns. That's pretty good. That's almost a full game. Like that's still not a full game. And when you're talking about, you know, a unit like Tauntauns that, you know, pushes you all the way back, and you have to take time basically swimming through them to get to the rest of the table. Like the difference between turn 5 and 6 can be really huge. So I know that we're working with longer round times. I think it's the same that they used at Gen Con, which is like 3 hours total, you know, 2.5 regulation, 15 for setup, and then 15 for like overtime, I think. But so that's pretty long, and it should be long enough, but I'm certain that there's going to be several results where it's not, and that's going to be an issue. So I think that's something that works in favor of Tauntauns generally.
All right, Dash. What are we looking at with the Bosk shore gun line? What's going to be a strength or a weakness? You can decide which one you want to talk about.
Well, I mean, as long as we're talking about limited visibility, I mean, it can be quite a killer for that list, frankly. Not being able to leverage your range for advantage in early turns of the game is a big drawback to the list. And frankly, if anything can get in real close to them, they also have significant problems. So I'd say a combination of limited viz and things like Tauntauns that can kind of drive in there, or high activation lists that can catch Bosk kind of in the open.
All right, David, any thoughts on that?
I mean, I was going to say the same thing. Like the ball really is in the shoreline player's court not to overplay their position and not to leave those weak activations in places that can be sniped off by tawns without reprisal.
Mm-hmm.
Like you have to be aware that Tauntaun threat range is 30 inches. Like if it's within range 5, it can be gotten to and shot by a Tauntaun turn 1. So you just have to be careful not to leave your snipers in places that are going to get killed. Like, for example, don't on Disarray place one sniper team in the far corner, because that is Tauntaun bait. They will just go kill it, and you just lose an act for free, essentially. And the Tauntaun player loves this because, like, okay, now I can go do something safe with my Taun, then come back with this Taun that is probably on full health or 1 wound late in the game. And now that attrition has taken place, it's even stronger than it was at the start. So don't go off on Disarray deploying one sniper and fulfilling the requirement, because you're going to lose that sniper.
So what would you place there instead?
Maybe like a full unit, or just like make enough of a commitment that the Tauntaun can't just solo it. Make it dangerous.
So here's my question there, I guess. If you have a single commander list, like, is there an activation that you're going to put over there that is not going to get just isolated and picked apart by taunts? Like if you throw a unit of storms or shores or something over there, if you're playing Empire, it seems like the same thing is going to happen to them. Like if you're on, I mean, obviously you should be avoiding Disarray against the Tauntaun player if you don't have them yourself
as a single commander,
right?
Even before that.
But if you're caught in that position, like, I don't know that the sniper is the wrong play there, just because unless you're literally splitting your army in half, which is also not a good idea against Tauntauns, like you're just going to lose whatever you put over there.
I guess the upside would be rolling red dice over white dice.
I mean, airspeeder.
Yeah, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly could tie him up for longer, but I mean, if you have like
depends on what you
if you have like a naked stormtrooper squad or something like that, that's probably better, because they're going to do less offensively speaking anyway. But if you don't have a naked stormtrooper squad, I think it's your option's still a sniper in that situation.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk.
Maybe.
Okay, all right. Maybe.
No, I
Take
just,
your
I
piece,
just,
David.
I just like it. I think the best solution is if you have a piece of line of sight blocking terrain over there, just use it, and don't leave it there to
Oh
die.
yeah. You definitely want to like
just,
try and save it
know that.
if you can.
Yeah, try to save it. Don't
Yeah.
just leave it there, and also just hit a bunch of
Yeah.
standbys if you can.
But I think what you shouldn't do is like split your army completely in half.
No, definitely not, because that probably will get you killed.
Okay. So
It also depends on objective heavily too. There's too many factors, but just don't leave a sniper to die to tauntauns on your flank. It's just a fast way to go down and act.
yeah, that is fair. So let's talk about our last cast. We rallied against 8 activations, and though there
It's a
is
lot of fun to
one
play.
that is pretty strong, like we did talk about, double the fall list. So let's talk about it. Why, for those that don't know why it's strong, who I don't know who best on the panel here is to talk about that, but whoever thinks
Yeah,
they know
probably
the
Kyle.
most, let us know. Why is it strong? Is it Kyle?
Yeah,
I've played against it a bunch.
I also have played it a bunch myself.
Well, I haven't played it at all, so take that, everyone.
Oh man, let's just keep measuring.
Yeah, go ahead, Kyle.
Sorry, that was my daughter. She says hi. But yeah, so it has 2 very strong focus pieces, right? In Dooku and Grievous. That was her again.
And Kyle, you're done. Let's talk to David.
That's fun. It has 2 strong focus pieces.
And unlike other, so it's sort of analogous to Luke Sabine in that you have 2 like very strong in your face focus pieces, except with CIS you have perfect activation control of them.
It's actually more like Luke Palpatine
And cunning.
because Dooku is like basically Palpatine.
Yeah, it's Luke Palpatine with Entourage
He's just
Luke,
got that
basically.
level of strength. Yeah, but Grievous is like just chilling out there getting quarters.
So that's obviously really strong in that like Dooku has cunning, so you can, and his cards are excellent. So it's a list that is very good at going first and going first with both focus pieces if you want to. Like you can play Duke as 1 pip and then go first with Grievous because he's going to be the only token in your bag if you set it up correctly. And then also immediately after that go with Dooku. So it's really good at like, if it gets within the threat range of those 2 very strong characters, it's good at wiping activations at the start of a turn extremely quickly.
What is the threat range, Kyle?
Well, for Grievous, his melee threat range is 2.
And
his obviously on his Annihilator, it's pretty close to range 4 because he has Relentless. It's just under range 4. With Dooku, it's on a normal turn, it's going to be range 3 with his Lightning. And obviously that he's got that 3 pip where he can perform a move on something after he attacks it. So whatever he shoots is going to be exposed after he hits it. But he also has Scatter like natively on the Lightning, so it's kind of a similar situation. If he can shoot a unit that's activated already with his Lightning, that unit is going to be sitting out there for the rest of the turn to get plinked at by B1s. So basically for him it's 3. On his 1 pip turn it's actually like 4, range 4, because he has Relentless.
Okay.
But so it's farther than you think, I think is the short answer to that question. Like
Okay.
ideally what you want to do against double the fall is use terrain to prevent them from getting there in the first place, or try and isolate. If you can pick off some B1s, that's really helpful. Snipers are actually pretty good against Grievous, so if you can get some shots on Grievous and start throwing some suppression down on him, he's not going to panic while he's close enough to Dooku, but hopefully you can prevent him from getting 2 actions. So spread out and shoot them, I think, is the short answer to that question. And then obviously if you've got a higher activation count list like Tauntauns, stall until the tail end of your turn and then try and do as much damage as possible.
And if he hasn't played double the fall, don't leave your focus piece within range 2 of Dooku.
Yeah.
You'll just lose.
Yeah, it's definitely, it's very much like a Palpatine list in that if you don't have experience against it, any list is going to have some surprises to deal with if you're not experienced against it, but double the fall and Palpatine lists both punish those mistakes far more than other lists do. So, just make sure you know your ranges, get some reps in against something like that if you can. It's definitely a list that once you're experienced against it, it's less dangerous. But if you get caught with your pants down, it's the game can be over very quickly. So
it really does take a loss in practice to appreciate the gravity of the situation when it happens.
It's actually not unlike, I mean, we talked previously about this, like that triple MK2, triple vet, triple tauntaun, Leia, bombard fire support list. Like, that's one of those things that if you've never played against it and you get caught with your pants down against it, you're just going to lose on turn one. But there's also, once you figured it out, there's also a fair bit of counterplay. So it's similar to that, conceptually speaking. I think it's more versatile than like a pure cheese list like that. But
okay, so those are the three lists. Do we want to talk about what we're bringing and why? Do we want to move on to that? Who wants to volunteer to give up their secrets first?
I'll go. Because not nearly as important, because I'm bringing clones. I made a last second decision to just do it. I had been practicing tauntauns the past 3 weeks because I wanted to try and bring as much of a competitive list as I could going to LVO. But as we've talked about over the past couple of days, tauntauns just don't speak to me. They're not my play style. They don't fit how I want to play the game. And I don't collect Empire to just like make the switch over to Shores. But I do have a fully loaded 8 activation clone list, fully painted, ready to go. So that's how we're going to roll. And I know I'm going to enjoy myself playing it. I don't know how good it's going to be, but I'd rather play something that I want to play and understand how the list functions rather than play tauntauns where I understand how they function, but it's just not how my brain's wired to play the game.
Mm-hmm. All right. Cirillo, you want to go next?
All right, so I'm bringing an 11 activation cross list. That's basically Krennic, Bosk, 2 Shores, 2 Mortars, a Medic Storm, loaded DTs, and 3 Snipers. Comes with a decent-sized bid as well, because I cannot get the limited visibility as we talked about earlier. It's not even in the deck for that obvious reason. I like having Pierce. Bosk and 3 Snipers is a decent amount of Pierce. The DTs and Bosk both have Hunter, so it's decently good at countering tauntauns with that. It's easy to get a wound onto tauntauns with a sniper or such, and then you can just kind of go to town with double aims. Struggles a little bit against lightsabers and such, but with all those range 4 weapons, and Bosk's melee isn't terrible, the DT's range 2 aren't terrible, and 2 Shore Troopers isn't exactly a small amount of firepower when it comes to plinking down something that's coming at me. And my favorite thing about the list is Bosk tends to die to like ATSTs and other high activation lists where they can hit him first. Jay, you have no experience with that, but I do have cunning, and being able to like turn 1 lying in wait, pop around the corner, and then hit like a voracious ambition or deploy the garrison to get Bosk to go first, shoot, and move back into cover is pretty good at wiping something out that someone didn't expect to be able to get to. Because unless there's that cunning on the other side, I'm going to go first.
Yeah, I would say that like for anybody playing and hasn't played against Bosk or Shores or just isn't thinking about it, that's a trap that I've fallen in a few times where it's that range 4 is always a lot shorter than you think it is. And you're never quite prepared for what Bosk or Shores or really any of the Empire range 4 units can do. And then all of a sudden they're doing it and you're like, oh my God, what just happened? But yeah, so that's good. So David, what about you? What do you got?
Well, I was also going to say Mike's list also has the X factor of bounty, which you can't ever forget that.
Right.
It's always good to have like an X factor in your list. It's kind of, just an extra little, here's another way for me to win in my back pocket. I decided not to run trips. I ran trips for a while just in practice, and I just kept racking up losses with them, and it's like what am I missing?
And by trips, you mean triple tauntauns.
Triple tauntauns, yeah, because I'm a dedicated rebel. So what trips doesn't mean anything else, but I know for our users it might be confusing. The conclusion I came to was, Sabine's really good, Luke's really good. I don't want to overcommit to tauntauns, and so I just decided to go with Luke, Sabine, double taunt. Instead of going full commit and saying, okay, if the tauntauns if they don't work, I lose, and if they work, I win. I don't want to be that player. And so, Sabine kind of starts the process of generating additional outs. And I've won, all my tournament victories I've had with Luke, and I don't want to leave a piece that I have great experience with, and that is still an extremely effective and extremely strong value for the points. I don't want to leave him at home, and it also rounds my list out against vehicles, because now not only do I have Ram, I also have piercing crits from the lightsaber. So it just has a lot of answers. It's very much a Swiss Army knife kind of list. I managed to do it with triple sniper still. I believe Leia Sabine. Leia Sabine does still have triple snipers, but there's some other iterations I tried with a double sniper, and heck, I even tried Luke Sabine triple ton, which takes no bid and no uplinks and no control. And I had some success with that, but I didn't really like it. So I just decided to kind of downgrade to the double ton and take a heavier version of Luke to make up for the difference in points. And I feel pretty confident about it. I don't know if it's going to be undefeated. I hope to go X-1 with it, but I think it's got a very good shot at doing that.
I don't even have them.
So what are you bringing, Mike Barry?
I am bringing Vader Bosk. I have yet to lose with it over the course of like 3 tournaments and a bunch of online games, so it's kind of just what I'm comfortable with. It might not be the best meta call, but that's what I've been playing a ton of lately, and I'm just gonna kind of stick to my guns.
I actually think it's interesting, particularly if the terrain is good enough for Vader, because like unlike other Bosk lists, once a saber wielder or tauntauns or whatever get into your lines, you have Darth Vader. You have an answer to that situation.
Yeah.
So
it's interesting because I found that the list is like really good in situations where you might think it's not so great. Just because you might be a little bit short on the range situation, but you still got 3 snipers, short troopers, mortars, and Bosk. Like you can still kind of rip somebody up at range 4 pretty easily, which means they have to close, which kind of brings them into the jaws of the Dark Lord of the Sith, which is nice. I have yet to really be in a situation where that hasn't worked out the way I wanted it to. I'm sure that day will eventually come. Hopefully, it won't be this weekend, but we'll see.
So, what are you bringing, Jay?
Well, let me tell you, Kyle. Actually, what was it? Probably 3 or 4 weeks ago, we had that Notorious Scoundrels podcast about the heavies, and we were talking about heavies. And at the time, the reason we were talking about them is because I was playing heavies again, and I've been really high on this list. It's Veers, 5 stormtroopers naked. 2 of them have astromechs, 2 snipers, and then an ATST and a tank. It's 10 activations. It's got the 2 heavies, and I don't know. I've played a bunch of games with it. I think it's respectable. I think it holds its own. But I think the most important thing is I'm comfortable with it, and I really like playing it. You know what I mean? That's been the biggest part for me, and prepping for LVO and trying to get to LVO and figure out what list I was going to play. I mean, I probably went through 3 or 4 different lists that I wanted to try, but this is the first one that just felt right when I put it on the table, I guess, for me.
Nice. So, explain a little bit more in detail how you ended on a meta hipster list.
Well, yeah, so that's a good question. I was just thinking about specifically with Tawns and specifically with Tawns, I was just thinking about how could I block them out really from getting to what I want to do. And it just seemed to me, well, heavies have big bases. They can't be locked up in melee, and I don't know, it just seemed like a good idea. And then I started playing it against other lists, and it holds its own for sure.
So how do you feel about the fact that on our Friday heat, you're only going to run into 14 Rebel lists now?
I'm feeling real bad.
Womp. Womp, womp.
I'm deeply concerned. It is concerning. I think the one thing I got going for me is I don't know that a lot of the Empire lists are going to be running a lot of impact. It's the Pierce mostly that I got to worry about, and the crit heavy Bosk and Shore Troopers really are the big concern. But I think there's ways to play the lists that you can kind of draw them out. And, I've been practicing with it, and I'm hoping I'm good enough with the list to do that. But we'll see.
Yeah, watch the flanks on that tank.
Yeah.
I do hope you get good terrain so that you can block things off, because that's actually, like, I think the coolest use of vehicles is, like, denying places for creature troopers to walk. I think that's their coolest use right now.
Yeah, the tank just saying, like, you don't get to go in this lane.
Yeah. I mean, and that was, somebody said to me, I think it was at the Prime we recently played, that we were like looking at a table that had a ton of terrain on it, and they're like, oh, that looks bad for you. I'm like, no, I just shove those things in those lanes, and nobody goes through those lanes until you destroy those things. And then I'm going to do whatever I want back on this side of the table until you figure out what you're going to do against those two.
I think the best use of a tank I saw was at Canadian Nationals. The key position middle point was just like a flat piece of metal, like in the middle. And the guy, it was for the last game.
Matt.
He just put his tank on top of it, and you can't touch it because the tank's model's covering the whole thing. So he's a guy called Judge. So Brendan comes over. He's like, can he do that? And Brendan's like, yeah, it fits. So
yeah,
the leg was like the last turn too. So he just put the tank on top, no chance to score. And I'm like, oh, tank can do some stuff. That's pretty funny.
Yeah, so actually there's an important nuance there, specifically with key positions, is that's like a situation where the objective markers aren't, claimable or anything. They're not, like, they're just used to mark terrain pieces. So normally you can't overlap an objective marker. Like, you couldn't prevent someone from grabbing a box by doing that.
Right.
But you can do that on key positions because the objective is the terrain piece, and there's no prohibition against, driving over a terrain piece. So
yeah, and there's some fun stuff with tank and ATST you can do with, like, Sabine bombs and Bosk bombs, like maybe just driving over the top of them, and there's no line of sight anymore. Like, so there's a bunch of stuff you can do there that's fun with them. And I think to that point we were talking about earlier in the podcast is that it's those two things that, like, okay, you see one ATST or you see one tank, you're like, all right, I can handle this. But when you see both of them, you're like, all right, I need to rethink everything I was thinking about going into this game. And maybe you don't, but it just gives you that pause for like 2 seconds where you're like, uh-oh.
I mean, I got to say, as somebody that if I was showing up, I'd be running Palpatine, I would not want to face a list like yours.
Yeah.
I mean, like a lot of Empire lists these days are dropping things like DLTs. And sure, shores are pretty good at crypt fishing, but you're still ultimately like relying on rolling up those surges. So
just lightning him in the side arc, man. That's bound to work.
Yeah, I've done that. The trick is getting to range 2.
Right.
But it's been fun. I've been enjoying playing it. I've noticed the odd thing has been for me, my tanks dice seem to be betraying me lately, where like they're the red dice and I'm just like failing all my saves with my tank, but then my ATST is living forever. It's been a real odd journey so far with those two, but I've been enjoying it. So
yeah, it's kind of like, I don't know, this is probably some weird illusion that I'm falling prey to, but it always feels like the unexpected result of the white dice is always much stronger than the unexpected result of the red dice, because you weren't saving as many on average somehow. It's some weird illusion created by math. But it's like you always have a bigger upside when white dice save like reds. But when reds save like white, it's even more painful because we're expecting to save that.
Well, and I would agree with that. And I think, I'd like to say something that kind of transitions into like what are some of our last minute preps that we've been doing. But, for me, it's been a lot about, I'm going to be honest. I mean, the last probably month or two, I've been real salty about dice. I've been playing a lot of TTS games and it's been driving me crazy. And then we got a local guy who like rolls like a champion, and like for instance, he was playing OP Vader the other day, and I got like 14 hits on OP Vader, and he blocked all of them. And then I got 9 suppression on him, and he rolled 8 off, and I was just like, okay, well, I guess nothing's happening today then, you know. And so, but the preparation for me has been that's literally one turn or one activation of the game. And I find in real life, if I just kind of like calm myself down and like refocus and go back to like basics of like, all right, how am I going to win this game? That the dice tend to kind of roll back the other way eventually, you know. And so you just gotta, you know, for me, it's just been patience and trying not to get salty about dice, really. What about you guys? Dash, what have you been doing to kind of prep for
I've been
LVO?
painting. That's what I've been doing. I've been painting, and I am not done yet. And so I'm gonna continue to paint. I've got like 2 sniper teams. Sure, I've got to paint and a mortar. And yeah, I might end up borrowing some stuff at this rate, to be honest.
Did we? I want to go back in the tapes. Did we have this same conversation last LVO or Adepticon? Which one was it? Because I remember having this same conversation on the podcast. Okay, all right.
Because I don't think there was a painting requirement for LVO last
Accurate.
So,
yeah, that's right.
Yeah. And, you know, I don't know. I think, you know, I'm probably just going to start, like, outsourcing the painting because it's just a real pain in the butt. I'm like super – I don't like to paint with models that look like crap, and I'm not a very good painter, which is, like, not a super great combination. So it takes me like 10 hours to paint a stormtrooper squad minimum, and they still kind of come out not very great. I don't know. So yeah, I'm painting. That's what I'm doing to prep for LBO. I'm not really concerned
Perfect.
about that.
Sounds like you're angry painting too.
Angry painting.
Seem really
I'm coming off a cold here, so but as far as the games go, I mean there's not a ton to learn. I feel like with the list I've got, just because I've played it so much. So I mean, I'm sure that there are still things to learn, but nothing that's not that's gonna come up in like a super casual game.
All right, David, what are you doing to prep?
Well, you know, Dash was talking about painting, and I just looked at the snipers I washed yesterday. I realized I used the wrong wash, so they look like they've been in the rain. So I used the gloss wash on accident, and not the matte wash. Oh well, it's fixable. But no, I've been trying to grind as many games as possible before we play. I never actually settled on a list until about a few days ago, and even when I knew what archetype I was going to play, I was like juggling upgrades for a week and a half, just like, okay, what if I use this? What if I did this? And just like thinking out all the lines that could possibly take place. And you know, speaking to the sort of saltiness thing, I've been thinking a lot about, you know, how to stay, you know, emotionally even keeled throughout a tournament, because that's definitely my weakness. Is that if I get like a bad beat, I can go on tilt and stop thinking and just like make like an overly aggressive play and just get horribly punished for it because my opponent has their, you know, mental game on point and I don't. And you sort of like you're trying to make the game give you what you want, and that's not how you win. It really isn't. You have to do the correct decisions no matter what has happened. You just have to keep going back and saying, okay, what is the next correct move? And just trying to focus in on that and be ready for the tournament that way. But that's kind of been my focus, is, you know, figuring out what the last 20 points of my list are, and just trying to remain emotionally even keeled over the course of different games.
All right, that's good. Mike Cirillo, how about you?
Does laundry count? Because I have a lot of pool parties and other things I need to go to after Legion. But no, I've actually just...
Yeah, man. What kind of parties are you going to, dude? Like, why?
I didn't invite you to any of my parties.
That would be world champion Luke Cook and I. We have some clubs to hit up.
Oh, jeez.
Aren't you guys both 19?
Your mission, by the way, is
we're over
like
22.
Yeah.
Oh, that's going to start like the minute that we land. That's what I'm going out to Vegas for. But no, in all seriousness, I played my 15 games with my list about 2 months beforehand. I like to take about a week break before we start a tournament so that I don't get jaded or burned out and influenced by negative results. So play a whole bunch of games for 2 months, take a week break. I'll play probably a warm-up game with Zach on Wednesday and then get ready to dive into it so that I've got a fresh mindset and I've got to, I know how to run the list. There's nothing more to learn from that, and I don't have any negative influences sitting in my brain. It's kind of like golfing.
All right, Zach. Oh, I'm sorry, Mike.
Yeah,
you're still doing golfing. Go ahead, tell us
No,
all
it's like
about
golfing. You can do the same thing 1,000 times, but you can do that 1,000 times wrong. So you need to make sure that you have your reps, you have your clear head. There's no bad influences.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Zach.
Minus alcohol, right?
The bar is in the hall.
I think some would dispute that alcohol is a bad influence as opposed to a good one. But
They say practice as you play, so just drink.
All right, Zach, you're up.
Just get one last rep in with Mike. I think on Wednesday we're going to get a game in. The good thing about clones is I have a lot of reps with them in the past month or two, and I feel super comfortable, even though I'm going to be low activation with just Obi-Wan Rex and 6 phase ones. But I understand how the army functions, and I think one of the best parts of my game is how I position my army and stuff like that. And I'm just going to feel a lot more comfortable putting clones on the table as opposed to tauntauns. So just getting that last rep in before we go out is going to be huge. I'd like to get more in, but it's just tough, with life. But it is what it is. I'll get that last rep in, do some last second painting for the narrative event. We're actually putting some probe droids. Me and Nima are going to paint up some Imperial Assault probe droids for the narrative. Slap them on some Legion bases.
Oh, good.
Awesome.
We'll do that. So that was something that came up today. So I got to prime those and paint those tomorrow probably. But that's, going to be a real fun part of the event, of course, as, the event deck's going to be big on that. You can talk about that more, Jay, if you want.
Yeah, so LJ didn't like the fact that I didn't have probe droids and I wanted to put B1s in there. I'm like, what? They're droids. They all went crazy. Don't worry about where they're from. Like, I don't have any probe droids. Deal with that.
Yeah, ironically, we have like a group chat for the judges at LVO, and we were going through them before he posted about it today. And then I was like, oh, I have Imperial Salt somewhere. So I had to go find them. And Nima has his already painted up, so I'm going to try and match mine as best as I can to his, and we'll roll with that.
But for those of you that don't know, listening, the narrative event is actually going to be based around our event deck that we put together. This is something we've been in the works for a few months now. We made a call out on the Fifth Trooper podcast for listener submissions from the community for an event deck. And basically there's going to be 2 types of cards. There's cards that land during the battlefield setup, and then there's going to be random events that'll happen throughout the narrative. And actually, we're going to be giving 4 of those decks away to people who are playing in the narrative event. So I think we're going to do like a random drawing for all the people in the narrative event. I will have more on me, so come talk to me. Or I'm going to put this out here. If you're going to LVO, and if you beat me, and if we're paired and you beat me, you can win yourself an event deck from me. I'm up in the stakes at this LVO. Mike, I hope we get paired off, Mike. I just want to beat you so bad. And so you'll never get an event deck. You'll never get an event deck. Never, ever. Okay. So come to LVO, come talk to me. I'm going to have a ton of tons of handouts. Something. I'm going to have something with me. Cards and event decks and all kinds of crazy stuff from the Fifth Trooper. So,
oh yeah.
Oh snap!
I don't think playing requires talking.
It does.
So we'll be fine.
But man,
ass kicking is a universal language.
No, it does not. All right. Anyways, Mike. That's just so funny. He's so good at the game. Remember seeing him at Worlds last year? Oh no, I don't.
Man, easy, everybody, just take it easy.
But all right, let's end on bold predictions. Who wants to go first with their? You know what? Let's go to our local trash panda here in the studio.
Oh, is it me?
Yeah. hey, Raccoon Evan. What's your bold prediction for LVO?
Oh God. Ion will actually be in someone's list. I think. Like seriously. As half as a joke and half as look like Biston. If you take Pathfinders, Biston's not bad right now. There's a lot of vehicles around. Droids hate him. Doctors hate him.
5 out of 6 droids say they hate this
5
man.
Out of 6 droids say they really don't like losing an activation. I think my prediction is one of the day 2 cuts. I don't know what form it'll be, but Ion will be in there somewhere. I suspect on maybe a vehicle or a character. But and triple bikes, baby.
All right.
Another hot take. I was playing triple bikes before it was cool, but triple bikes. Actually, they're so cheap now. Like, who cares? Take 3 of them, whatever. Like,
perfect.
They do okay.
Well,
Live from the trash can. That was
Live
Evan.
from the opinion nobody wanted to hear.
Go ahead, Kyle. What's your bold prediction, buddy?
well, I just wanted to pile on Evan's bold prediction and say that Nicky Mylan from the UK is coming, and I think he's playing triple bikes, and he's a very good player. So he's like the original bike player. So if anyone can make triple bikes a thing, it's him for sure. As far as bold predictions, somebody kind of already said this, but I think there will be at least one heavy in the top 8. So I don't know how bold that is, but
It's
Well, I mean, I'm going with double heavies, so not too bold.
Just proc for your prediction twice if he gets up there with 2.
I predict I'm not handing out any event decks. No, just
here I'll go a little bolder. I'm gonna say at least one Clone Wars faction in the top 8.
There we go.
Oh,
there we go.
I like that.
Now we're getting spicy.
All right, David, what do you got?
Yeah, I kind of stole what I was going to say, which was clones in top 8.
Well, pick something else.
No, okay, I'll be more specific. Triple bark in top 8.
I love that.
Who let the dogs out? Is that gonna happen?
Triple bark or Wookiees or an FD in top 8.
We're changing
All right.
triple
I can see
bark
that.
list to who let the dogs out via Evan.
Okay. So who let the dogs out in top 8 or Wookiees?
I'd actually really be like Wookiees. We've all been
Bold
thinking they're
predictions
pretty
that
not
shows
super
up.
great, but maybe they're okay anti-Ton, I guess, and counterpunch if they don't get one shot. I don't know, like
Yeah, they'll get one
if they
hit by
don't get
Tons. Yeah.
one shot right at the board, greased. But yeah, that's
Yeah.
pretty good.
All right, Dash, Mr. Hot Take himself, Mr. Gonna beat me at every game I've ever played him in.
Darth
What do you
Vader
got
takes
going?
it all.
What's
You
your
heard
bold
it here
prediction?
first.
So your bold prediction is that you win.
Yeah, because we're the only Vader player left.
First person to beat Mike gets a Fifth
I mean,
Trooper T-shirt.
Maybe the bold prediction is I'm the only one that brings Darth Vader to LVO. I don't know. We'll see.
Maybe,
Yeah. I think there'll be. I mean, there's
without-
like 115
Maybe.
people. I think there'll be at
We'll
least
see.
one other.
There
Vader
was
there.
not a single Darth Vader in any of the Adepticon
Yeah.
lists last year.
That's true.
All right,
There were no T-47s at Gen Con, that I recall.
Yeah, Gen Con
all
was
right,
before the
Cirillo,
drop,
what do you
though.
got?
That's true.
All right, my bold prediction is that a list with boss wins it all. But
Oh man,
Is that what we're doing, guys? We're just picking our own list to take it all. All right.
Commander Luke will win. LVO, yeah, okay.
I think there's going to be a T-47 in the top 8. I think there's a
I
chance.
mean, do I just go
Alright.
with a list with
run
Obi-Wan
triple
with the
Tons
entire
at
thing,
47.
or
Zach, what do you got?
a lot of good ones were stolen, but I actually
Let's
think
put
that we're
Obi-Wan
gonna
Rex
see,
and 6 phase ones.
at least
you know.
2, maybe 3 ATST lists in the top 8. I just think the ATST is actually poised in a really good spot, and people have, I'm not saying people are still sleeping on it, but it's just a strong list, especially where tables, you could just, again, we talked about this earlier, Kyle made the point, you can walk up to a table and just be like, oh yeah. And with 117 people, so 60 tables per day, it has a real good shot, and I think the ATSD is going to have a big weekend this weekend.
All right. Here is my bold prediction. And it's not going to be about my list. Are you ready? In the top 8, I predict there will be at least 2 eWebs. They may be in
Jay
the
still
same
loves his
list,
eWebs,
or
I
they
see.
may be 2 separate lists, but there will be 2 eWebs.
Like someone brought one
in the
just
top
not
8.
on the list. Just as a side thing.
That's awfully particular.
Yep, I know. You heard it first. Nostradamus of podcasting says
Okay.
eWebs in the top 8.
Here comes the mad froth.
Take it to the bank. Yeah, they're the
Is that a
highest
prestigious unit there,
quality.
Jay?
Is that a new unit? I don't think that I've.
Yeah. Well, you wouldn't know about it. Only rich people use them.
Oh, man. Oh.
Well, I imagine that only rich people can afford to buy bad.
Okay,
mice.
so
Spoiler.
That's right. Well, you saw it put together in Mandalorian. It is the eWeb. It's going to take everyone out.
we need to get Jay a gold robe like Snoke. I think that's really the Snoke. I think that's the.
All right, so let's wind it down. What do you guys? You guys got anything else you want to say about LVO or Legion or what? Whatever. Anybody?
Yeah, just I think we've talked about it plenty in the past, but just go there and be good to your opponent. Talk to them how you want to be spoken to, and just be an overall good sport when playing the game. It's a long weekend. The last thing you want to do is step to a table and have a bad tone set. You want to have a good time. I mean, of course, it's a competitive game. I get it, but we're all here for a good time. It's tabletop.
Yeah, I want to hype Legion real
Star
quick.
Wars.
We are
Let's have
less than
fun.
2 years into a game. We sold out an event in about 16 minutes, expanded that event, sold it out again in less than half an hour. We've sold it out so quickly that they put the bar in our hotel lobby, and we have 3 full events that are packed to the rafters. Like, that's fantastic, and that's just an explanation of how good this community is and how good the people are. So everyone deserves a pat in the back. Let's make this a celebration of what Legion can be and get everything repped and ready for next year and for Worlds.
All right, that's good. Yeah, and I would say this is going to be a little self-promotion for the network, but we are live streaming the event. We'll be live Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. You will have multiple hosts. We're going to have guests lined up from throughout the community. I think 1 or 2 of the guys from Stabcast may stop by and say hi. A bunch of people are going to stop by. We're hoping to have Alex Davey on. He'll be wandering around, and check out our YouTube channel and subscribe so you get the update, or just check it out. This weekend it'll be fantastic.
If Alex is half as entertaining as he was at Adepticon, it's going to be a good show.
Yeah.
I'll provide the side.
Yeah, maybe we'll learn about more stuff. That'll be good.
Oh, well, so that's actually another thing, not related to LVO, but there is a FFG live stream this week
It's Thursday.
on the 23rd, I think. What is that, Thursday?
Yeah.
So, watch that. Maybe they'll be... They've been doing these live streams and throwing some new stuff down, so...
In fact, watch both of them, because the 21st is the organized play AMA.
Oh, yeah.
With Alex Watkins, and then the 23rd is the Legion live play.
So that's actually today. When you listen to this podcast, the live stream will be out.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
You can find it on their YouTube page.
Hope you watched it. If not, go look at the VOD.
Yeah, but most importantly, watch our live stream on our YouTube.
Yeah.
Jay and I will be the entertaining day on Saturday.
I don't know. Jake can't talk.
Yeah, that's right.
That's just cruel, man.
Or play, according to you. So you know what? Not much I can do around here.
What good are you?
I will be excitedly watching it from afar and living vicariously through you guys. So, yeah, I'll even subscribe.
You haven't
to the
already?
YouTube channel.
You haven't subscribed yet? What is your
so it's
problem?
free.
If everybody
I don't think so.
If all of our listeners could click the subscribe button to make up for Kyle's grievous mistake, that'd be fantastic.
Yeah, BT Dubs. 60% of the people that watch our videos or listen to our podcasts on YouTube are not subscribed to our channel. So actually, if you've been enjoying our content, subscribe. That helps us.
Yeah, I guess so.
And if you don't want to help us, then don't subscribe. I don't. You know, you got to do
We've
what
got
you got to
the
do. Bro.
how to subscribe for Kyle, so maybe we can pass it along.
Yeah, it's not through lack of interest. I just
The
you know
big
I don't know how to do
red
computers.
button.
So
It's next to our name.
usually, like you're not supposed to click the big red button, right? Isn't that?
Everything's fine, Kyle. You're doing great.
All right.
All right, you guys. What we good? So this will wrap up our LVO 2020 pre-show. Looking forward to it. Everybody, check out the stream. We'll keep you up to date on what's going on, and yeah, good luck to everyone on the panel who's playing. I look forward to seeing you in the field of battle.
Good luck as well.
Yeah, good luck, guys. I hope you have a good time.
Yeah. Good luck, everybody.
Good luck, everyone. See you on
luck,
Thursday
everyone.
or Friday, except for Kyle and Evan.
I'm gonna crush you all.
Everyone make Mike go 0-4.
All right.
Wow.
Thanks for listening, and stand lying in wait.
Guys.